This is Kurtop with you, and these are 100 cities that disappeared from the map as if they never existed. Icy ruins beneath the snow. We're used to thinking that the Arctic is a place ruled only by icy emptiness, lifeless, empty, devoid of any traces of civilization. But what if that's not the case? What if beneath the thick glaciers, there are not just traces of long-lost peoples, but entire lost cities? Satellite research in recent years has led to the discovery of anomalous shapes beneath the icy crust, which may indicate ancient ruins hidden deep within the north. According to some scientists, these cities could be much older than the very first civilizations known to us. Mesopotamia, Egypt, ancient India. All these peoples might have simply been a continuation of something greater and more mysterious than we can imagine. How is that possible? How could it happen that such cities are hidden under kilometers-thick layers of ice? Today, these anomalies are still just hypotheses, but each new study only deepens the mystery. Satellite images taken in the most remote corners of the planet show strange shapes and lines that resemble the structure of buildings, streets, or even entire cities. Are these glaciers not just barriers, but burial grounds of ancient civilizations, ice caps that hide not only climate changes, but also forgotten epics of humanity? Amazingly, it's possible that these cities fell victim to global catastrophes that preceded the ice ages. After all, is there anything older than what is preserved in eternal ice? This question concerns scientists now more than ever, and perhaps if we unravel the mystery hidden beneath centuries-old ice, we will reconsider not only the history of our civilizations, but also our very understanding of how our world developed. The Great Flood, myth or catastrophe? The story of the Great Flood is one of the most universal in world culture. It is known not only from the Bible, where Noah builds the ark, but also from the Sumerian epic of Ziusudra, the Babylonian story of Utnapishtim, the Indian myth of Menu, the Greek tale of Deucalion, Chinese chronicles, legends of Native Americans, and even Arctic tales. Such a coincidence is almost impossible to consider accidental. This makes one wonder, maybe the flood really happened, and if so, when? One of the most convincing hypotheses speaks of an event that happened about 7,600 years ago. At that time, due to a sharp rise in the level of the world ocean, salty water rushed through the Bosporus into the Black Sea lowland. Geologists claimed that the water level rose by 140 meters, flooding vast areas. What used to be fertile land became sea. This event really could have seemed like the end of the world for the people of that era. But was it a global flood? Probably not. However, for specific people who lived in river valleys, lowlands, and near the coast, this was indeed a global catastrophe. Imagine the water takes everything: your home, livestock, land, village, ancestors. People escape on rafts, flee to the mountains. Centuries later, the memory of what happened turns into a myth, universal and terrifying. I'm amazed at how this ancient fear still lives within us. Even in the 21st century, we fear floods. We talk about climate catastrophe as if we genetically remember how the world once truly drowned. And maybe it's not just a myth, it's a warning. A brewery from the time of the first rulers of Egypt. Archaeologists have discovered the oldest brewery in the world, located in the necropolis of Abydos, Egypt. This discovery not only sheds light on early brewing technologies, but also helps us understand how resources were managed during the construction of the pyramids. The complex consists of 8 massive installations, each up to 20 meters long. Each of them contains 2 rows of 40 vessels that were used to heat a mixture of grain and water, a classic beer brewing process. Scientists date the brewery to the era of Pharaoh Narmer, who is considered the founder of the First Dynasty. Dr. Adams, who led the research, called this discovery an industrial-scale production and noted that it demonstrates a high level of labor organization in ancient Egypt. The ability to manage the mass distribution of resources and organize the workforce allowed the Egyptians to build grand structures, including the pyramids. In addition, beer played an important role in rituals. The large-scale production in Abydos indicates its use in sacrifices, ceremonies, and rituals, which confirms its significance in the development of Egyptian royal power. The salt mine in Wieliczka. The Wieliczka mine is located near Krakow in Poland. This is a grand underground complex that has been operating since the 13th century. With 9 levels going down more than 327 meters deep, an astonishing amount of rock salt has been extracted here, about 200 million tons. Today, the Velichka mine is a popular tourist attraction. Visitors can embark on an exciting journey through the historic and mythical halls of the mine, where they will find magnificent salt sculptures, including the famous work, The Last Supper, as well as various chandeliers made from salt minerals. The mine also houses a resort where guests can try halotherapy, treatment using salt, which is believed to help with various respiratory diseases and skin problems. The ancient tree has changed our understanding of Earth's past. Last summer, in a tiny village in New Zealand, construction workers were clearing a site for building. Everything was going smoothly until the excavator hit something massive and solid that wouldn't let them dig any further. A few more bulldozers came to help, and working together they managed to reach the trunk of a tree. But it wasn't an ordinary tree. Hours of meticulous work went by. The builders started to feel like the tree had no end. When they finally managed to get it out, it turned out that the trunk was 20 meters long and weighed about 65 tons. Construction was forgotten, and the work area was taken over by scientists. According to research, the plant died at least 42,000 years ago. Archaeologists say that this find is especially valuable because this kauri tree species grew for 1,700 years during an amazing period in Earth's history. At that time, the planet's magnetic field became tilted. It is generally believed that it is generated in the Earth's core and forms an electric current that spreads far into outer space. The magnetic field acts as a shield, protecting the planet from harmful solar wind. And if it reverses its polarity, its strength becomes much weaker. This leads to a huge amount of radiation from space reaching the Earth, and it is possible that mass extinction is directly related to this phenomenon. For many decades, the kauri tree species was the dominant one over large areas. After the plants matured, they recorded data about the climate and the composition of the atmosphere in their annual rings. When the trees fell, some of them, under their own weight, sank deep into the peat bogs, where many remained almost unchanged for many thousands of years. Scientists, using special software and observing samples of annual rings, can create long chronological sequences and build climate models based on them. The disappearance of Atlantis. Atlantis is not just an ancient legend, it's a cultural phantom that still influences minds, dreams, and even science. Platon described it with remarkable detail: a huge island with an advanced civilization, a powerful army, and a complex system of canals. He claimed that Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, opposite the Atlas Mountains, and sank underwater as a result of a massive earthquake in just one day, around 9,500 before Christ. More than 11,000 years have passed since then, and we are still debating whether it really existed. People have searched for it in Crete and Santorini, in Cuba and Brazil, in Iceland, and at the bottom of the Atlantic. Scientists have proposed hundreds of theories, from the disaster on Thera to a distorted memory of a sunken part of the Sahara. The problem is that we don't have a single direct piece of archaeological evidence. No artifacts, no remains, no genetic trace. But science also can't completely disprove the existence of Atlantis. The strangest thing is the scale of its influence. The legend of Atlantis gave rise to entire philosophical schools. It became the basis for occult theories, Nazi mystics, pseudosciences, conspiracy theorists, and science fiction writers. Atlantis became a symbol of a lost golden age. It fascinates us because it's not just a vanished land. It's the idea that once we were more than we are now. Sometimes I think that Atlantis is not a sunken island, but a reflection of our dream. We want to believe that people were once stronger, smarter, better, and until we know the truth, this story will keep resurfacing again and again. The underground city in Montreal. Beneath the bustling streets of Montreal in Canada lies an amazing creation of modern times, the underground city, or La Ville Souterraine. Its construction began in 1962, and today this underground network covers more than 32 kilometers of tunnels and spaces, connecting various commercial, retail, and transportation hubs. With climate control and a wide variety of shops, restaurants, hotels, theaters, and office complexes, the underground city offers a unique and convenient refuge for both residents and visitors of Montreal during the harsh winter months. However, it's interesting to note that locals rarely use the term La Ville Souterraine. The more common name is the underground city to refer to this network of interconnected tunnels and spaces. A city that shouldn't exist. In the south of modern Iraq, among the sun-scorched land, lie the ruins of Eridu. Once, canals flowed here, craftsmen worked, and the fields were irrigated according to a precisely calculated system. Recent studies have shown that Eridu is not just an ancient city, it is possibly the very first city on Earth. According to satellite data, archaeologists have found more than 4,000 canals and about 700 farms, arranged in a strictly organized pattern. Canals up to 9 kilometers long, a branched irrigation network, an infrastructure that scattered tribes could not have built. This required engineers, workers, and a management system. And all of this existed thousands of years before the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Akkadians appeared. Strangely enough, the region was abandoned, which is why this entire ancient system has been preserved almost untouched. It's as if our modern city were buried under ash, and someone found it completely intact 6,000 years later. Eridu is mentioned in the Sumerian king list as the first city to which kingship was given from the heavens. When myth coincides with geodesy, it gets a little unsettling. Stone burials in Switzerland. Scientists discovered 8 prehistoric tombs in the Swiss suburb of Pully. According to preliminary estimates, the burials were made between 5,500 and 6,500 years ago. The last discoveries in this necropolis in the suburb of Lausanne were made in 1984. Ahead of construction work on Chemin de Vernay, archaeologists were called to the site for preventive excavations. The vast prehistoric necropolis stretches from Chemin de Vernay to Chemin de Chablande. It was first discovered more than a century ago by the Swiss archaeologist, historian, and architect Albert Naef. Considering the latest discoveries, about 80 tombs have been found in the necropolis. The authorities of the canton of Vaud reported that 8 tombs made of molasse slabs were discovered in an area of only 10 square meters. Molasse is a term that usually refers to sandstone, shale, and other forms of stone formed as a result of the creation and uplift of new mountain ranges. This material is often found in the Alps and the Himalayas. It is also known that the sarcophagi were located at a shallow depth, and their covering slabs were found to be broken, and therefore were only partially removed. 2 graves remained untouched while the others were damaged as a result of recent utility work in the area. This led to the fact that the skeletal remains, mostly skulls, were preserved in only 3 of the burials. The first pharaoh's tomb in 100 years. In 2022, archaeologists made an incredible discovery. They found the first burial chamber of an Egyptian pharaoh, Thutmose II, in a century. He ruled about 3,500 years ago and was the 4th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. The burial site is located in the Valley of the Kings on the west bank of Luxor, in the same place where the famous tomb of Tutankhamun was discovered in 1922. The entrance to the tomb was found in 2022, and archaeologists immediately noticed fragments of vessels, with inscriptions that identified Thutmose II as the deceased king. The name of his wife, the great Queen Hatshepsut, was also on these vessels. Soon, scientists discovered that the remains of the pharaoh had been moved to another location several centuries after the tomb was looted. The tomb is in poor condition because it was flooded soon after the death of Thutmose II. Inside, they found fragments of blue inscriptions, yellow stars, and parts of religious texts, which indicates the importance of rituals associated with burial. Thutmose II was known for suppressing uprisings in Nubia and the Levant. His reign from 1492 to 1479 before Christ was relatively short. Compared to his ancestors, his tomb was considered less significant. This discovery was a key contribution to studying ancient Egyptian culture and Thutmose II's reign. Archaeologists call it one of the most significant archaeological achievements of recent years. The city of Guanajuato. Guanajuato, in central Mexico, is known for its narrow streets, alleys, and tunnels beneath its colorful facades. These underground passages were originally created to divert water from the silver mines, which were the lifeblood of the city during the Spanish colonial period. Over time, these tunnels were transformed into functional roads and sidewalks, offering an alternative way to get around underground instead of the busy streets above. Visitors to Guanajuato can use these unique underground passages while learning about the city's vibrant history, rich in silver mining, trade, and the influence of the Spanish colonial era. As is well known, Guanajuato has not only unique architecture, but also a rich history. These underground passages are a testament to the remarkable adaptation and innovation used to solve infrastructure and economic challenges throughout different times. Who built the pyramids? They have stood for more than 4,500 years. Hundreds of tons of stone, millions of blocks, perfectly measured angles. Majestic, almost alien, the pyramids of Giza remain a symbol of eternity and mystery. But the main question is simple: how? Modern archaeology offers different theories. One theory says the blocks were quarried and moved with sledges and wet sand, while another claims they were made on site from limestone and clay, essentially forming ancient concrete. The French engineer Joseph Davidovits even presented his own formula for geopolymer stone. And still, even with these hypotheses, we don't have a definite answer. It's not just about the technology. The mystery lies in the scale. To build the Pyramid of Khufu, it would have taken about 2.3 million blocks. Even with perfect organization of labor, that's decades of work and thousands of workers. And let's remember, this was the ancient world. No wheeled cranes, no steel, no electricity, and yet the internal shafts are aligned with centimeter precision, and the orientation of the pyramid's sides almost perfectly matches the 4 cardinal directions. And there are other questions. Why were such tombs needed? Why are all 3 pyramids of Giza aligned at the same angles as the stars of Orion's belt? Why do some blocks show traces of processing that look more like melting than cutting? The more I read about the pyramids, the more I feel this is not just a structure, it's a message. They were built not only for the dead, they were built for the future, for us. And until we understand exactly how they were built, we won't understand why. The 3,000-year-old statues of Monte Prama. The stone giants of Sardinia, or the giants of Monte Prama, are huge statues about 3,000 years old. They were discovered in the spring of 1974 by Sardinian farmers who were plowing their fields and accidentally came across something that looked like a large stone. Upon closer inspection, it turned out that they had found something much more intriguing: a large stone head. Their discovery became one of the most important in the Western Mediterranean related to the Iron Age. The Sardinian farmers found the first of 1,000 fragments collected by archaeologists over the following decades. Dozens of giant statues were assembled from these pieces. All of them are carved from solid blocks of limestone. Their height often exceeds 2 meters. Historians are still puzzled about what exactly the Monte Prama giants represent, but everyone agrees that they are evidence of a remarkable Iron Age culture that flourished almost 3,000 years ago. The stone giants of Sardinia have rather unusual and memorable facial features. They have triangular faces with clearly defined eyebrows and noses that have a distinct T-shaped form. But the most unusual feature is the eyes. Each eye is made up of 2 almost perfect circles, an outer and an inner one. Some statues hold shields, others hold bows. Based on this, scientists have divided the statues into 3 types: archers, warriors, and boxers. The statues have many elements, but archaeologists believe that when they were undamaged, each sculpture displayed a complete set of features characteristic of its particular category. Boxers are the most numerous category to date. They are depicted with bare chests and stocky bodies. Each figure holds a shield above its head. Archaeologists have determined from the fragments that the boxers once held a ritual fighting glove in their right hand. Historians suggest that they symbolized athlete fighters who may have played a religious role. The archers are depicted with their right arm raised in a gesture of greeting. Their left hand, wearing a glove, holds a bow resting on their shoulder. No well-preserved archer heads have been found yet, so scientists believe that they have the same facial features as the warriors. The latter have been found in small numbers and are also poorly preserved. Their helmets have a crest in the center and 2 horns. Most likely they all originally carried round shields. Underground rituals. In the deep mountainous region of central Anatolia lies the ancient underground city of Ursini. According to legends based on local traditions, Ursini was carved into the rocks back in the time of the Hittite kingdom around the 8th century before Christ. The city was intended for protection against enemy invasions and bad weather. Ursini extends 4 levels deep into the earth, including living quarters, public spaces, and even a small underground temple. A unique ventilation system consisting of long, narrow channels provided a supply of fresh air. In addition, the city had wells for water and places for storing food. The most mysterious part of Ursini is the Hall of Shadows, where, according to legend, mysterious rituals were performed. The walls of the hall are decorated with intricate reliefs depicting mythical creatures and symbols, the meaning of which remains unknown to this day. Historians believe that Ursini could have been used as a temporary shelter during times of war or natural disasters. But some studies suggest that the city could have been a permanent residence for a special segment of the population. Deities on the throne from the Neolithic era. Archaeologists discovered unusual artifacts during excavations in the city of Perov, in the territory of Moravia. Over 4 years of research, they found many precious stones, mysterious burials, and extraordinary divine thrones, as well as previously unknown ancient settlements. Excavations near Perov began in 2017 at the site of a future highway construction, and only finished this past June. Archaeologists say that around 4,700 artifacts and 150 burials were discovered in this area, which will now be thoroughly studied. Among the finds are parts of sculptures of deities seated on thrones, which were predominant in the art of the Neolithic Late Stone Age. Local civilizations of the Neolithic period often depicted their gods in a seated position on a throne. These were usually female figures. For the Lingyo culture, ceramic thrones are considered rarer artifacts. There was life on Mars. There is evidence. In the 1980s, the CIA conducted experiments with people who had extrasensory abilities. Among them was Joe McMoneagle, known as Remote Viewer Number 1. He shared his memories on the Americans Alchemy podcast, talking about secret projects and unusual visions. One day, he was given coordinates and asked to describe what he saw. McMoneagle spoke about a giant pyramid, larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, with huge halls inside. There were beings there that looked like humans, but were much taller. They were trapped, surrounded by a hostile environment, and they were slowly dying. Then the instructor showed a white card with the words Mars, 1 million before Christ, written on it. Later, McMoneagle visited National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Jet Propulsion Laboratory to study the photo negatives. He found strange structures and bones in them. In his opinion, there was once a civilization on Mars, but a massive cosmic object deprived the planet of its atmosphere, leading to its demise. McMoneagle also participated in the CIA's Stargate project, where psychics were trained to penetrate the minds of enemies. In 2017, a document about the study of Mars was declassified, where his visions were described in detail. The report specified exact coordinates: 40.89 degrees north latitude, 9.55 degrees west longitude. McMoneagle saw Martians in unusual clothing, a raging storm, and giant pyramids that were used as shelters. He described the rooms inside the pyramid as minimalist, intended for sleeping or hibernation. The Martians were waiting for help, but no rescue came. The psychic was sure he was describing Earth. When he found out it was Mars, he got angry because he couldn't verify the truth of his visions. McMoneagle insisted National Aeronautics and Space Administration supply images of the given coordinates. The photos did show a strange structure beside the crater. He claimed that if the pyramid had existed before the impact, it would have been destroyed by the collision. Moreover, according to him, when National Aeronautics and Space Administration first detected this structure, it was emitting a red glow. Although such experiments remain controversial, the fact that they were conducted is confirmed by official documents. The decline of the ancient civilization on Mars remains an open question. A pyramid that sank before recorded history. Near Yonaguni Island, at a depth of 30 meters on the ocean floor, lies a stone pyramid. Even steps, terraces, arches, and openings, all of it looks like a building, not just random rocks. The structure is about 10,000 years old, which means it was built even before the Sumerians, Egyptians, and the first cities. Scientists are still debating. Some are sure it's a natural formation, while others believe Yonaguni is proof of a previously unrecognized civilization. If they are right, it could completely change our understanding of when and how human history began. What if this isn't just a mistaken trace of history, but the trace of some civilization? What if there's a history hidden beneath this ocean that we don't know about? Shamans predict a catastrophe. In Mexico, one of the ancient pyramids used by ancient tribes for human sacrifices collapsed, raising concerns about an impending catastrophe. The descendants of the tribe that built the pyramid feared that the collapse could be a harbinger of a major disaster caused by natural forces or some other phenomenon. In the photos from the scene, you can see that part of the structure collapsed after a recent heavy rain. The downpour washed away one side of the pyramid. These pyramids were built by the ancestors of the modern Purépecha, a warlike people who once managed to defeat the Aztecs. Historians claim that the Yucata pyramids were used by the Purépecha tribe for ritual sacrifices to their main god, Curicaweri. Anthropologist Terriaquiri Alvarez stated that the collapse of the pyramid is a bad omen. Local shamans believe that even the fall of a single stone was a bad omen, and the collapse of an entire wall means an inevitable catastrophe. A similar phenomenon was observed before the arrival of the conquistadors. An ancient house in the Sinai Desert. In Egypt, archaeologists discovered a structure in the Sinai Desert that is 3,500 years old, identified as a royal rest area. The ruins of this fortified area were found at the Tel Habwa Archaeological Site. The palace, intended for the rest of the pharaoh and his close associates, was built from mud brick. It was part of the fortified complexes built near the eastern gates of Egypt to house troops. Dating has shown that the palace was built during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, known for his military campaigns. The kings of ancient Egypt regularly conducted military expeditions to the eastern Mediterranean. The Sinai Desert was one of the routes used by Egyptian troops. The pharaoh's rest house was a strategic facility, the center of the fortress where the ruler and his army rested. Here, the warriors regained their strength and replenished their supplies before campaigns. The discovery of Noah's Ark. In 1959, Captain İlkan Durupinar, while working on aerial photography for NATO in Turkey, made an unexpected discovery. At an altitude of 2,000 meters, he noticed unusual geological formations, resembling the outline of a giant ship. This discovery sparked a lot of controversy and speculation that the remains found could be Noah's Ark. The discovery attracted the attention of both scientists and adventurers. Despite numerous expeditions and studies in the following years, definitive evidence confirming the biblical story of the Ark has not yet been found. However, this region continues to be a subject of scientific interest. To support the possibility of real events like the biblical flood, geological studies in the Black Sea region have shown that about 6,000 years ago, a catastrophic flooding did indeed occur. This could have been caused by the massive melting of glaciers, which led to a significant rise in global sea levels. In addition, clay tablets dating back to the same period were found in Mesopotamia. One of these tablets describes the story of the Great Flood and the rescue of various animal species on a ship, which has notable parallels with the story of Noah from the Bible. These findings suggest that the themes of a global catastrophe and salvation on a ship may have deep historical roots, running through many cultures and civilizations. These ruins are older than the Egyptian pyramids. Archaeologists have found a mysterious complex from the New Stone Age near Prague, which turned out to be older than Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. The discovered rondel, built about 7,000 years ago, might have served as a gathering place for local farmers. Its diameter is about 55 meters, which would be enough to fit the Leaning Tower of Pisa inside. Miroslav Kraus, the head of the excavation, claims that the structure belonged to the pottery culture that existed between 4,900 and 4,400 before Christ. The first mention of the Wiener Circle appeared in the 1980s, when it was partially uncovered during the installation of utilities. Modern excavations made it possible to see it in its entirety and uncovered clay pottery, animal bones, and stone tools. Analysis of organic remains will help determine the exact time of construction and may possibly link it to the nearby Neolithic settlement. The study of the medallion shows that the culture of its builders spread throughout Central Europe, affecting the territories of modern Poland, Germany, and the Czech Republic, where people lived in longhouses that could accommodate up to 30 people. The ancient bird turned out to be a figurine of Anne Boleyn. Antique dealer Paul Fitzsimmons from Devon in the southwest of England bought a decorative wooden bird at one of the small auctions in 2019, paying about $100 for it. Even then, he suspected that the elegantly carved figurine might somehow be connected to the Tudors, who ruled England from 1485 to 1603. But the true value of the wooden bird was revealed later. Fitzsimmons decided to investigate, and after almost 2 years, he discovered that the original owner of the bird was the famous Queen Anne Boleyn, one of the wives of Henry VIII of England. Paul explained that he made the discovery by comparing the bird to a drawing of the Royal Palace Hampton Court, which depicts the same figurine. Paul's wooden bird is very similar to other figurines carved for the Great Hall of the palace, and was probably part of a decorative scheme created especially for Anne Boleyn. The bird has very fine and delicate carving, and it also has traces of gilding, which indicates that the item had high status and could have been part of the decor of a royal palace. The fact is that after Anne Boleyn was accused of infidelity by the king and executed, Henry VIII ordered everything associated with her to be destroyed. As a result, very few personal belongings or interior items of one of the most famous English queens have survived to this day. Historians believe that the wooden bird might have been saved by one of Boleyn's supporters. Thanks to newly discovered facts, the value of the wooden figurine increased from $100 to $270,000. However, Fitzsimmons does not intend to profit from the historical find. On the contrary, he plans to donate the 16th century bird to Hampton Court Palace, where it was originally placed and where it can now adorn the restored chambers of Anne Boleyn. A secret underground city in England. Beneath the quiet English countryside, shrouded in mystery, lies one of the most famous underground cities, built in the late 1950s at the height of the Cold War. This secret bunker, known as Burlington, was designed to provide shelter for the British government in the event of a nuclear attack. Located on a 35-acre site and extending about 60 meters underground, Burlington could accommodate and support 4,000 officials and government employees for 3 months. It housed communication centers, a hospital, a broadcasting studio, and even an underground lake to provide fresh water. Although the facility was decommissioned in the early 2000s, it still stands as a fascinating example of Cold War-era planning and secrecy. Statues of the ancient Greek gods Aphrodite and Dionysus. The heads of statues of ancient Greek gods were discovered during excavations at the river mouth in the city of Izanoy, Turkey. They most likely belong to Aphrodite and Dionysus and are about 5,000 years old. Interestingly, during earlier excavations by archaeologists, the bodies of the statues were found, and without the heads, they could only guess to whom they were dedicated. Now, after some time, the mystery has been solved. The heads, like their bodies, were masterfully crafted by artisans from limestone about 5,000 years ago. Unfortunately, archaeologists still do not know the reason why the statues of Aphrodite and Dionysus were destroyed. However, despite this, they do have a couple of theories. The first theory suggests that in ancient times there might have been a workshop here where statues were created. The second theory is based on discoveries made in August of this year. At that time, archaeologists found another statue of the goddess Hygeia, believed to be responsible for health and cleanliness. And scientists suggested that there might have been wellness complexes there. According to experts, the city of Azanoi was founded in 3300 before Christ. During the Hellenistic period, the city was divided between two kingdoms, Pergamon and Bithynia, until it finally passed to Rome in 134 before Christ. An underground oasis in Iran. In the arid landscapes of Iran lies the ancient underground city of Nushabad, also known as Uyi. This impressive 3-story underground complex dates back to the time of the Sasanian Empire. The city was carved into the ground to protect against invasions and to provide a reliable shelter from the harsh climatic conditions of the region. Nushabad features a complex ventilation system, water wells, various chambers for living and storage, and a labyrinth of interwoven tunnels that help to mislead potential intruders. During the scorching summer months, the residents of Nushabad use the millennia-old sections of the city for storage and shelter. The ancient fortress city. In the Chinese city of Dongguan, Guangdong province, archaeologists have discovered a fortress city that is more than 600 years old. The discovery sheds light on the defensive systems of the South China Sea during the Ming Dynasty. The excavations revealed massive fortress walls from that era, about 100 meters long and 7.6 meters thick, as well as remains of roads, drains, foundations, and wells. The total research area covered 3,000 square meters, making the project the largest in the region in recent years. The fortress was the first line of defense for the province against sea invasions. Scientists plan to restore the city layout and create an archaeological park to better understand the military architecture of that time. Meanwhile, on Mount Helen in the Yinchuan area, archaeologists found an ancient porcelain production center about 1,000 years old. The ceramics found there are surprisingly similar to the products from Jingdezhen, the porcelain capital. This discovery confirms the high level of cultural integration in medieval China. Where did the Maya disappear to? The Maya left behind incredible things: cities carved out of the jungle, temples resembling stepped pyramids, a complex writing system, and extremely precise astronomical calculations. Their calendars were so accurate that they still spark debates today. But by the time the Spanish arrived, only small settlements in the forest remained of the great civilization. No army, no power, no temples. What happened? Scientists have proposed dozens of theories. The most common one is an ecological disaster. The Maya cut down too many forests, the soil became depleted, and a drought began. Combined with overpopulation and internal conflicts, this could have led to collapse. There is also a theory about epidemics. Some say it was civil wars between cities and states. Even an alien trace is mentioned in conspiracy circles. The disappearance of an entire culture seems so strange. But most importantly, the Maya did not disappear completely. The descendants of this civilization still live in Guatemala, Mexico, and Belize. They speak Mayan languages, preserve traditions, customs, and costumes. It's just that the state model we call the Maya civilization collapsed. And it collapsed suddenly. The cities became deserted, the power disappeared, and the writing was forgotten over time. When you look at their stone cities covered in moss, you get the feeling that all of this happened quite recently, as if they went deep into the jungle and will return someday. Not as a tribe, but as a culture that once again has something to say to the world. A unique mineral in the diamond? In a diamond extracted from deep within the earth, scientists discovered the first sample of a previously unseen mineral, Dave-Maoite. This is the first sample of high-pressure calcium silicate perovskite ever found on Earth. Another form, known as wollastonite, is found all over the world, but the crystalline structure of Dave-Maoite forms only under high pressure and high temperatures. Such conditions exist in the Earth's mantle, the solid layer between the outer core and the crust. The existence of this high-pressure form of calcium silicate was predicted more than half a century ago. Since then, scientists have not been able to detect it. Also, Dave-Maoite is extremely sensitive to changes in pressure. However, this time, geologists were able to detect the rarest mineral by observing the scattering of X-rays from the surface of the diamond. They analyzed a sample from Botswana that formed in the mantle at a depth of about 660 kilometers below the Earth's surface and identified a whole sample of Dave-Maoite trapped inside. As a result, the International Mineralogical Association designated Dave-Maoite as a new mineral. Dave-Maoite is believed to play an important geochemical role in the Earth's mantle. Scientists suggest that the mineral may also contain other trace elements, including uranium and thorium, which release heat as a result of radioactive decay. It is possible that Dave-Maoite contributes to heat generation in the mantle. An underground temple in Malta. The Halsaflieni Hypogum in Malta is an ancient underground complex built around 4000 before Christ. It is one of the best prehistoric sites in the world. In 1980, it was included in the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage List. This incredible structure has several levels and chambers carved into the limestone rock, and it was used as a place for burials and ritual ceremonies. Over 7,000 remains have been discovered here. But the most fascinating thing about the hypogum is its unique acoustic properties. In the oracle chamber, sound resonates at amazing frequencies, creating a special acoustic effect. the ruins of the most ancient civilization underwater. In the early 2000s, a team of researchers working under the Canadian company Advanced Digital Communications made a sensational discovery off the coast of Cuba. At a depth of about 600 to 750 meters on the ocean floor, they found strange structures resembling stone buildings. These structures looked like organized rows of giant stone blocks, some of which had a regular rectangular shape and resembled massive walls or pyramid-like buildings. The initial results of underwater research conducted using modern sonar led to the hypothesis of a possible sunken city that could have been swallowed by the ocean tens of thousands of years ago. According to some estimates, the age of these ruins may exceed 50,000 years, which is significantly older than the earliest known civilizations such as Sumer and ancient Egypt. This makes the possible discovery even more intriguing, as it suggests the existence of ancient and possibly highly developed cultures that science knows nothing about yet. Some scientists believe that these ruins may represent the remains of an ancient city built before the last ice age, when the sea level was significantly lower. There is a theory that this area might have been inhabited by ancient peoples who were later forced to leave their homes due to rising sea levels. This hypothesis is supported by proponents of the theory about the existence of ancient sunken continents, such as Atlantis, described in the works of Plato. Some geologists suggest that these formations may be the result of natural geological processes, such as erosion, earthquakes, and other movements of the Earth's crust. Further research and analysis of the underwater ruins off the coast of Cuba require significant resources and time. Let's hope that the authorities will find the means to study these ancient ruins. A slave room in Pompeii? A well-preserved room that served as living quarters for slaves was discovered at the Civita Giuliana Villa in a wealthy suburb located about 700 meters northwest of the city walls of ancient Pompeii. This large and luxurious villa was partially explored at the beginning of the 20th century, but over the years it was looted by treasure hunters. Excavations only resumed here a few years ago. In early 2021, a ceremonial chariot and a stable with the remains of 3 horses were discovered at this site. Now, archaeologists have made a new discovery, which they say offers a new perspective on that part of the ancient world that usually remained in the shadows, the everyday brutality of slaves' lives. The room gives us an idea of the everyday living conditions of slaves thanks to its remarkable preservation and the ability to create plaster casts of the bed and other objects made from perishable materials, which, after the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD, left their imprint in the layers of ash and pumice that covered everything around. The discovered room, which served as modest living quarters for the staff who performed daily work on the Roman villa, measures only 16 square meters. And, as researchers explain, it is something between a bedroom and a storeroom, with a single small window at the top. It contained 3 short beds, as well as a wooden chest holding metal and fabric items that apparently were once parts of horse harnesses. It is assumed that a small family lived here, as indicated by the presence of a child's bed. At the same time, the small remaining space in the room was used for storage. Pompeii was a center for elite farmers and merchants, and their arrogance made them believe they could safely live on the edge of a geological monster. However, when the eruption occurred, traditional class systems were instantly destroyed, as both master and slave fell at the mercy of a force far greater than money and social status. The sunken garden in Australia. In the city of Mount Gambier, South Australia, the magical Umferston sinkhole is hidden, also known as the Sunken Garden. Created in 1886 by James Umferston, it was conceived as a reimagining of a huge limestone cave into a picturesque Victorian-era garden. Descending the stairs from ground level, visitors can explore this stunning underground oasis filled with terraced gardens, ferns, hydrangeas, and even hanging ivy draping from the cave ceiling. One of the unique features of the Umferston sinkhole is the colony of possums that live here. At dusk, these nocturnal creatures come out to feed on fruit left by visitors. Watching the possums adds a special charm and allows you to get closer to Australia's wildlife. As you know, the Umferston sinkhole is not only a unique natural formation, but also an embodiment of the amazing interaction between humans and nature. The creation of this garden demonstrates how human intervention can transform a natural space into a place of beauty and tranquility. A rare canoe that is 1,200 years old. Archaeologists from the Wisconsin Historical Society, with the assistance of divers from the Dane County Sheriff's Office, recovered a 1,200-year-old canoe from Lake Mendota. The 4.5-meter-long watercraft was found at a depth of about 8 meters. Underwater archaeologist Tamara Thompson and her friend Mallory Dracht went to explore the waters of the lake on jet skis in June. While doing so, they noticed something that looked like a log sticking out from the bottom of the lake. When Thompson continued her investigation, she realized it was a canoe. A few weeks later, carbon dating brought new sensational details. The find turned out to be over 1,000 years old, and it was perfectly preserved. The ancestors of Native Americans, the Winnebago Indians, or Ho-Chunk, known as the people of the Big Water, built their watercraft in this area by burning out the inside of logs and cleaning them with stone tools. According to Skibo, archaeologists sometimes find organic fragments of large objects that have been charred or preserved in a special microenvironment, but he noted that any organic material usually deteriorates quickly. The scientist believes that the canoe was preserved because it remained in a constantly wet environment, away from light, relatively deep in the water. The canoe will undergo conservation treatment, which will take 2 years, and then it will be displayed at the Wisconsin Historical Society Museum in Madison. A story that's not in the textbooks. Not so long ago, archaeologists found evidence that in ancient Troy, people were already drinking wine long before the Iliad was written. This is not just a theory or a guess, but real chemical evidence that confirmed that even ordinary people in the area of Troy not only drank wine, but also used it in their everyday lives. For researchers, this was a sensation because in ancient times, usually only the elite could afford the luxury of drinking wine. But in Troy, it was available to all layers of society. Research has shown that the cult of wine was so important to the inhabitants of Troy that the vessels in which it was drunk were found throughout the city, from wealthy palaces to simple residential neighborhoods. But what's even more interesting is that the fermentation method used in Troy was so unique, it resembled those of more advanced and developed civilizations of that time. And now, thanks to this research, we can confidently say that Troy was not just a legend, it was real, and its culture was much more complex and progressive than we could have imagined. The largest log house in the world. At the turn of the 20th century, Portland, Oregon was a thriving economic center. The city was known for its flour milling and timber industries, and its deep-water port at the Willamette and Columbia Rivers made Portland a key transportation hub. However, the long depression of the late 19th century dealt a serious blow to the region's economy. To attract investment and revive business activity, the Lewis and Clark Centennial Exposition was organized in 1905. This grand fair lasted for 4 months and attracted 1.6 million visitors from 21 countries. Dozens of buildings with domes and arches towered over the exposition, including the luxurious pavilions of Italy, France, and Germany. However, most of the structures were temporary, built from plaster on wooden frames. The exception was the forestry building, called the largest log cabin in the world. This massive structure, 62 meters long and 22 meters high, was built from whole logs brought from the forests of Columbia County. Inside, there were colonnades made of 54 rough-hewn trunks supporting a 2-story nave. The building's exhibition included animal taxidermy, Native American artifacts, and displays telling about Oregon's rich natural resources. After the exhibition ended, the forestry building was purchased by the city and stood abandoned for many years. In 1914, it was nearly destroyed by fire, but the building survived. However, in 1964, a powerful fire finally turned it into ruins. Columns of fire as tall as a 10-story building lit up the sky for miles, shattering windows in nearby buildings, and ash spread throughout the city. To make up for the loss, the Western Forestry Institute was established, and in 1791 a new building opened in Washington Park. In 1986, it was renamed the World Forestry Center to emphasize the importance of this field for the entire world. Thus, Portland finally secured its status as the forestry capital of the United States. The mystery of the 600-year-old tomb of the Black Prince. The Black Prince lived in Périgueux from 1330 to 1376. He led the army in important battles of the Hundred Years' War and was one of the best warriors of his time. Edward of Woodstock did not die on the battlefield. The cause of his death was an infectious disease. The day before he died, he dictated detailed instructions about how his grave should look. The Black Prince wanted to wear armor, as if preparing for another campaign. Only 6 centuries later, a group of scientists led by Jessica Barker, a lecturer from the Courtauld Institute of Art, was able to look inside the tomb for the first time using an endoscope. The researcher was amazed at how accurately the armor of Edward Woodstocksky was made. This is the very armor that decorates the tomb. It is reproduced with maximum accuracy, down to the smallest details like rivets. Scientists also found that the tomb and the bronze statue that adorn it were made 10 years after the death of the Black Prince, not soon after his passing as previously thought. Experts noted that the tomb of Edward of Woodstock resembles the burial place of his father, Edward III, which is located in Westminster Abbey. King Richard, the second Edward of Woodstock's son, installed the memorial and commissioned the tombs of his father and grandfather, strictly following the Black Prince's instructions. Scientists came to this conclusion after studying the only surviving document about the creation of the grave, dated 1386. It states that the materials for the statue and the coffin were obtained about 10 years after the deaths of the Black Prince and Edward III. Italian underground city. Located on top of a volcanic rock in Umbria, Italy, the city of Orvieto fascinates visitors with its underground wonders. Beneath the city's streets lies a complex network of more than 1,200 caves, wells, tunnels, and galleries, revealing Orvieto's rich history. As early as the 9th century before Christ, this place was inhabited by the Etruscans, and many underground features, such as cisterns and tombs, date back to that time. Special attention should be given to the impressive well of St. Patrick, Pozzo di San Patricio, built in 1537. It goes down to a depth of 62 meters and is a striking example of Renaissance engineering, from ancient wineries to places for breeding pigeons. The underground city of Orvieto offers an incredible journey through time. Textiles from Çatalhöyük. Scientists have discovered what the oldest samples of woven textiles were made from. It turned out they were neither linen nor wool. Çatalhöyük is the oldest and best preserved Neolithic settlement. It is located in present-day Turkey and dates back 8,000 to 9,000 years. The inhabitants left it before the Bronze Age began, and for a long time, Çatalhöyük was considered the oldest city on Earth. Later, it turned out that this was not the case. The settlement is also known for the fact that in 1962, pieces of woven fabric were found there for the first time. Since then, experts have been puzzling over what this fabric was made of. Some believed it was wool, others thought it was linen. As research by scientists from the University of Bern, Switzerland, the Free University of Berlin, Germany, and the Norwegian University of Science and Technology has shown, both groups were mistaken. After the 1960s, with the participation of the aforementioned researchers, pieces of woven material were also found there, dating back 8,500 to 8,700 years ago. This is one of the earliest examples of weaving in Europe and the Middle East, and probably in the world. That's exactly what the researchers did. Using a scanning electron microscope, they showed that some of the fabric samples were made from grass, while others were made from local oak bast. That's what they call the layer between the bark and the wood of trees like willow, oak, or linden. Interestingly, the local people used the same oak wood not only for weaving, but also for building houses. An ancient city in an oasis. Archaeologists have discovered the ruins of an ancient city over 4,000 years old in the Khaybar Oasis in the northwest of Saudi Arabia. This city, named Al-Nata, was founded around 2400 before Christ and consisted of about 50 houses, designed for a population of around 500 people. The city was surrounded by a massive wall 14.5 kilometers long, which likely protected its inhabitants from raids and the harsh climate. Interestingly, Al-Nata has been preserved thanks to a layer of basalt that protected the ruins from destruction. The discovery became possible thanks to aerial observations. From the air, the structure of the city walls and buildings hidden underground could be seen. Al-Nata became an important testament to the transition of the region's inhabitants from a nomadic to a settled way of life. Previously, scientists believed that at that time this territory was just a desert, unsuitable for life. However, the findings in the necropolis, including metal axes, daggers, and agate items, indicate a high level of development in crafts and technology. The mysterious pyramids of Sedinga. This complex, discovered by archaeologists at the end of the 20th century, includes more than 80 pyramids, making it one of the largest burial sites in the Nubian Desert, which is in Sudan. The pyramids of Sedinga were built during a period when Nubia was under the influence of ancient Egypt, and the rulers of the Kingdom of Kush sought to imitate Egyptian traditions and architecture. Most of the pyramids of Sedinga are small in size compared to the Egyptian pyramids, with an average height ranging from 3 to 7 meters. They were built from sandstone and brick and were used as burial places for the nobility and members of the ruling elite. Archaeologists have found ceramics, jewelry, as well as mummy remains in these pyramids, which indicates the high level of skill of Nubian craftsmen. One of the mysteries of the Sedinga pyramid is their large number in a relatively small area, which makes this complex unique. The construction of such a large number of pyramids may indicate the important religious and cultural significance of this place for the ancient Nubians. Sedinga was also a place of worship for the goddess Hathor, who played a key role in the religious life of Nubia. The casemates of Boca. In the city of Luxembourg, there is an impressive underground network of fortified tunnels and bastions known as the casemates of Boca. Built by the Spanish in the early 17th century, these extensive underground galleries played a key role in the city's defense strategy, especially during the numerous sieges, wars, and conflicts that Luxembourg experienced throughout its history. In 1994, this extensive and unique underground defense system was declared a United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage Site. Today, visitors can explore the Bach casemates and learn about the military engineering expertise behind the impressive underground construction. As is well known, the Bach casemates are among the most prominent witnesses of Luxembourg's military history. These structures demonstrate the complexity and sophistication of the defensive architecture of that time and serve as an example of military engineering art. A golden book-shaped triptych. A very rare find was discovered by Baffy Bailey from Lancaster. In a field near the city of York, the women found a small object with the help of a metal detector, shaped like a miniature book. The object measures only 1.5 centimeters in length. As Baffy herself told the British magazine Treasure Hunting, she and her husband regularly go treasure hunting using a metal detector. And that day she was incredibly lucky because she found such a valuable item almost immediately after starting the search. At first, Baffy didn't realize what exactly she had found, but after almost losing the item, she noticed that it was heavy and shaped like a book. According to the law, Baffy Bailey took the find to the coroner of the city of York, and he, without hesitation, concluded that the item fell under the Treasure Act. An expert who was brought in also estimated the value of the rare find at approximately 100,000 pounds sterling, or 9,737,000 rubles. The Yorkshire Museum has already claimed its right to purchase the gold folding icon. For example, it is known that in 1992, the Yorkshire Museum purchased a 15th century gold pendant, also found by metal detector enthusiasts, for £2.5 million. Experts in medieval iconography have determined that the folding icon depicts Saint Leonard and Saint Margaret. In the Middle Ages, they were considered the patrons of pregnant women and women in childbirth. Under the church where it all began, Jerusalem, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the most revered places in the Christian world. It is believed that this is where Jesus was buried, but for a long time, archaeologists debated how much this actually matches the biblical description. Everything changed when scientists from the University of Rome began digging under the floor of the church. They didn't find a tomb or an artifact, but the remains of an ancient garden, layers of soil between stone walls, traces of a terrace, a cultural layer, and most importantly, pollen from grapevines and olive trees. All of this matches the text from the Gospel of John. In this place where he was crucified, there was a garden. If radiocarbon analysis confirms the age of the find, it will be the first direct archaeological confirmation from the text of the New Testament. Exactly. Not theological, not symbolic, but physical. In addition, during the excavation, they found an old marble altar that disappeared during a fire in the 19th century. It had been in the church all this time, just turned toward the wall. On the front side, there was tourist graffiti, and on the back, a unique mosaic made with a technique known only to Vatican craftsmen. No sensationalism, no mysticism, just facts. But sometimes those speak louder than any legend. The city beneath the rocks. In a secluded corner of the Andalusian region of Spain lies the charming town of Seteno de las Bodegas, built right into the rock. The dwellings here are literally carved into the rock, and the overhanging cliffs serve as natural shelter and insulation. The town's unique architecture dates back to the 12th century. This place was once a thriving Moorish settlement. Today, Seteno de las Bodegas attracts tourists from all over the world, offering them the chance to explore winding streets dotted with tapas bars, shops, and views of the picturesque surrounding countryside. Vessels shaped like dogs with human masks. Such an unusual shape of the vessel has sparked a lot of debate among scholars. Some of them believe that this shape is connected to one of the Aztec legends, which is much older than the Aztecs themselves. And, as it turned out, this legend itself is quite unusual. The War of the Gods ended with the end of the world of the fourth sun. And since in this era the sun god was the water goddess Chalcutlicue, the end for people came as a great flood. But the god Tezcatlipoca took pity on the people and decided to save just one couple. For their own safety, he placed both of them inside the hollow of a huge tree and forbade them to leave it, so as not to reveal their location. For a long time, they sat motionless in fear of giving themselves away, with only hunger disturbing their peace. There was nothing but water around them, and their only source of food was fish. They started catching fish and roasting it over a fire, and this was their undoing. The gods noticed the smoke from the fire and sent Tezcatlipoca to destroy the survivors. In a rage over the fact that the people he had saved disobeyed him, he cut off their heads and, put them in their own behinds. Thus the people turned into hairless dogs. That's why the throat is located on the tail, and the mask with a human face is transplanted onto the head. One might assume that the scientists themselves invented such an unusual story, but mentions of a similar myth were found in the records of a Spanish chronicler, Juan Suarez de Cepeda, in the year 1582. The skull of the child of darkness. In the Rising Star Cave in Johannesburg, located about 12 meters from the Dinalidi chamber, the oldest remains of a human of the species Homo naledi were found. Among the remains, archaeologists from the University of the Witwatersrand discovered for the first time a partial child's skull. It consists of 28 fragments. Experts reconstructed parts of the skull and restored the upper jaw with teeth and the frontal orbit. They were also able to determine that the child died almost 250,000 years ago, when he was about 4 to 6 years old. No other bones were found. The team named the child Leti, which means lost. Scientists emphasize the special significance of this discovery, as it will help us understand the ancient ancestors of modern humans. The first remains of Homo naledi were discovered in the Rising Star Cave in 2015. Since then, almost 2,000 separate fragments from more than 24 individuals of this species have been recovered. According to Professor Lee Berger, Homo naledi remains one of the most mysterious ancient relatives of humans ever discovered. The underground city in Bolivia. In the deep deserts of the plains of southern Bolivia lie the ruins of the mysterious underground city of Yanaku. According to local legends dating back to around the 7th century AD, Yanaku was built by ancient civilizations as a refuge from frequent droughts and military conflicts. The structure of the city includes a complex network of tunnels and chambers located on different levels. The levels are connected by staircases and slopes carved into the rock, and a unique water supply system provided the inhabitants with water even during the driest periods. Ancient drawings and glyphs have been found on the walls of certain chambers, which, according to scientists, might be the key to understanding the lifestyle and culture of the inhabitants of Yanaku. Research shows that Yanaku might have been not only a refuge, but also a center of cultural and religious significance. Yet the reasons for its sudden abandonment remain a mystery. Today, Yanaku is a unique archaeological heritage site that attracts researchers and history enthusiasts from all over the world. a mysterious pentagonal structure that is 5,500 years old. In the northern Chinese province of Shaanxi, archaeologists have discovered the remains of a pentagonal structure that is 5,500 years old. The discovery was made at a construction site in Taiyuan, the capital of Shaanxi province, and experts believe it dates back to the middle and late stages of the Yangshao culture. It is already known that the semi-underground house found in the ruins covers a total area of 90 square meters, and the surviving walls have a maximum width of 50 centimeters. Researchers have determined that the interior of the walls was finished with a mixture of mud and grass. In addition, several holes were found where wooden posts supporting the house and walls had been placed. Scientists believe that 5,500 years ago, this pentagonal house was a meeting hall for the tribe. They note that pentagonal buildings were rare for that period. In addition, a total of 98 ash pits, 11 pottery kilns, 2 houses, and 6 tombs from the Ming and Qing dynasties were discovered at this site. Many ceramic items were also found, including clay cauldrons, pots, and bottles with pointed bottoms. According to experts, the discovery has great academic significance for understanding the cultural characteristics of the Neolithic era in the Taiyuan Basin and the ancient cultural interactions in Taiyuan and neighboring areas. The Yangshao culture, which originated in the middle reaches of the Yellow River, is considered a main current of Chinese culture and is well known for its excellent pottery craftsmanship. Fort Canning Bunker. Hidden beneath the greenery of Fort Canning Park in Singapore lies an artifact that serves as a reminder of the country's World War II history. Also known as the Battle Box, the Fort Canning Bunker is a former underground military command center built by the British in the 1930s, consisting of 26 rooms and 2 floors. This underground facility once served as the headquarters of British General Percival during the Battle of Singapore. Today, tours of the Fort Canning Bunker allow visitors to explore its well-preserved rooms, including the cipher room, telephone exchange, and air filtration system, and to learn about Singapore's wartime experience. As is well known, the Battle Box is not only a monument to military history, but also a testament to Singapore's strategic significance in the global conflicts of that era. This facility demonstrates the level of military engineering skill and planning employed by the British during wartime conditions. Stationary underwater structures. There are many stationary anomalous objects hidden in the world's oceans that still remain a mystery to scientists. Even if we set aside myths like the legends of Atlantis, the list of interesting discoveries still remains impressive. One of the most famous is the Yonaguni Monument, located near the Ryukyu Islands, not far from the Japanese island of Yonaguni. These are stone structures located at a shallow depth, which have regular geometric shapes. Although most scientists consider them to be natural geological formations, many researchers and pseudo-archaeologists try to prove that these stones are the result of human activity. Another mystery is the megalith found at the bottom of the Pantelleria Vecchia Bank in the Strait of Tunisia. This is a huge stone, 12 meters long and weighing 15 tons, which has 3 round holes in it. Based on its structure, it is believed that it was shaped by humans in the Mesolithic period about 12 to 15,000 years ago. However, analysis of the rock has shown that its age may be significantly greater, over 40,000 years, which casts doubt on its origin. The Cuban underwater city is another mysterious discovery made in 2001 off the western coast of Cuba. Using sonar, geometric structures were discovered that resemble pyramids and rings made of granite blocks. These findings have raised many questions among researchers, as they could be either natural formations or the result of human activity. These and other objects remain the subject of active research and discussion, as their origin could reveal much that is unknown about ancient civilizations and the nature of the ocean depths. It existed. Until recently, scientists believed that the grand project of building the Assyrian capital, Dur-Sharrukin, Khorsabad, was left half-finished after the death of King Sargon II. However, new geophysical studies prove the opposite. The city was completed and was actively functioning. Archaeologists used the magnetometry method, which allowed them to discover the remains of an impressive 127-room villa, probable royal gardens and water gates, as well as other large structures. All these discoveries indicate that outside the main palace, Khorsabad was a thriving center. Conceived by Sargon II himself in 713 before Christ as Sargon's fortress, the city did not fade into oblivion after his death. New evidence contradicts the long-held belief about an unfinished project and reveals the hidden life of the ancient capital. Work resumed in 2017 after the territory was liberated from Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Under the guidance of the French Archaeological Mission, specialists used a high-precision magnetometer, which allows them to visualize underground structures without expensive excavations. It turned out that Khorsabad, contrary to long-standing doubts, served as a full-fledged capital of Assyria. And now, modern discoveries reveal even more about the scale and wealth of the ancient empire. 2,000 kilometers to Antarctica. An international team of archaeologists and paleoecologists has confirmed the remarkable skills of Polynesian navigators who managed to reach the southern latitudes of the Pacific Ocean, although they never made it to Antarctica. Researchers on Enderby Island, located 500 kilometers south of Stewart Island, showed that Polynesians sometimes lived for short periods on this remote territory. Cultural layers and midden heaps were discovered on the island, confirming their presence. Using radiocarbon analysis, it was possible to accurately date the settlement to around 1250 to 1320 AD, which coincides with the known period of colonization in eastern Polynesia. Professor Adel Anderson and Janet Wilmshurst, who led the research, noted that Enderby became the southernmost place of residence for ancient Polynesians. Further journeys to the south were almost impossible due to the cold ocean waters, lack of resources for boat repairs, and the risk of hypothermia. This data highlights that although the Polynesians were outstanding navigators, they still had limits to their expeditions. The first astronomical observatory. The recently discovered ancient Egyptian observatory, the first of its kind, demonstrates the Egyptians' profound knowledge in astronomy and their close connection with spiritual and ritual practices. This is the largest and first known observatory in the history of Egypt. The remains of the 6th century before Christ structure were found 3 years ago during excavations in the ancient city of Buto, now known as Tel El Farin, in the Kafr el-Sheikh Governorate. Everything we found exceeded our expectations, said Hossam Ghonim, director of the Kafr el-Sheikh Antiquities Authority and head of the Archaeological Mission. Archaeologists discovered the ruins of an L-shaped building made of mud brick, covering an area of about 850 square meters. The eastern entrance leads to a place where sunlight illuminated the observation point for the sun and stars, where the priest astronomer stood. His image has been preserved on the walls, facing the rising sun, depicting the connection of the ancient Egyptians with the cosmos. Initially, researchers thought they had discovered a temple, but the discovery of artifacts and inscriptions related to astronomy, such as sundials and other time-measuring instruments, led to the conclusion that this was an observatory. Inside the hall, astronomical images of the sunrise and sunset during the 3 seasons were found. The artifacts found, such as statues of Kor and Osiris, as well as a bronze figurine of Osiris with a snake, confirmed the importance of the observatory's spiritual and scientific role. The grim history of the ancient columns. Sweden is a harsh country, and even against this background, there are especially mesmerizingly grim places. One such trio of stone pillars is on Gallow Hill, north of Visby. This place claims to be the only surviving medieval execution site in Europe. The Galberget Gallows, located on top of a small hill in the municipality of Visby, is a creepy but historically important site, one of the few that have survived since the Middle Ages. Built in the 13th century, it was used for executing local criminals. Tall stone pillars, surrounded by a low stone wall, supported wooden beams on which the condemned were hanged with ropes or hooks. The gallows was visible from the sea, serving as a warning of the harsh consequences awaiting criminals. During archaeological excavations near the gallows, the bodies of about 300 people were discovered. All of them had been executed. Some bodies were found in wooden coffins, which was a luxury, and indicated that these people belonged to the upper class. This shows that not only robbers and poor people were executed here, but also members of the elite. Sacsayhuaman, Peru. Sacsayhuaman, located on the outskirts of Cusco in Peru, is one of the most majestic and mysterious architectural structures left by the Incas. Although most scholars agree that the main part of this fortress was built in the 15th century, there is a theory that its foundations may have been laid long before that time. Sacsayhuaman impresses with its scale and engineering precision. Huge stone blocks, many of which weigh more than 200 tons, are fitted together with such precision that the fortress has only become stronger over the years, withstanding numerous earthquakes that destroyed many other Incan structures. Some researchers associate Sacsayhuaman with the legendary descent of the god Viracocha from the heavens, which adds a sense of mystique to the entire structure. According to Incan mythology, Viracocha was the creator of all things and the patron of civilization, and his arrival marked the beginning of a new era of development and prosperity. The Sacsayhuaman complex includes not only military structures, but also religious and administrative buildings, which indicates its multifunctional significance in Incan culture. The complex also contains numerous platforms, which are believed to have been used for astronomical observations and ritual ceremonies. The authenticity of the headdress of the last Aztec ruler. The feather artifact, which for a long time scholars believe to be the headdress of Cuauhtémoc, the last Aztec ruler from the Acamapichtli dynasty, is currently on display at the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico in an exhibition dedicated to the 500th anniversary of the fall of the Aztec city-state of Tenochtitlan. Recently, French and Mexican specialists studied it and concluded that it is impossible to wear this artifact on the head. And that's not the only surprise. It turned out that it was created between 1626 and 1810, whereas Tlatoani Cuauhtémoc was hanged by order of Hernán Cortés in 1525. The pseudo-artifact entered the museum collection thanks to the French antique dealer of the 19th and early 20th centuries, Eugène Boban, who specialized in pre-Columbian Mesoamerican antiquities. Boban was an antique dealer at the court of Maximilian I, the first and last emperor of Mexico from the Habsburg dynasty, and acted as an intermediary in the sale of Cuauhtémoc's headdress. By the way, this was not the antique dealer's first forgery. The crystal skull, originally sold by Boban and now in the British Museum, also turned out to be a 19th century forgery, not a pre-Columbian artifact. An ancient city in Micronesia. This amazing complex was built on artificial islands connected by a network of canals, which is why it is often called the Venice of the Pacific. The complex includes about 100 artificial islets. The islands were created from massive basalt blocks laid out in such a way as to form walls, platforms, and buildings. Each structure is surrounded by water canals, which makes this place even more mysterious and impressive. The age of Nan Madol is estimated to be about 1,500 years, but some studies suggest that the first structures may have appeared much earlier. Archaeologists believe that the construction of this complex began at the end of the first millennium AD, possibly under the leadership of local rulers, the Sodelur dynasty, who used Nan Madol as a ceremonial and administrative center. The main mystery of Nan Madol lies in how the inhabitants of Pohnpei Island were able to build such a complex and massive city with limited technology and resources. Each basalt block used in the construction weighs from several hundred kilograms to several tons. Transporting and installing such heavy blocks would have required significant effort and expertise. The basalt was quarried on the other side of the island, which meant it had to be transported across difficult terrain and water. Considering that the ancient builders did not have modern machinery, this achievement seems almost impossible. Some researchers suggest that the stone blocks could have been transported using rafts and ropes, while others point to the possible use of a system of levers and ramps. However, none of these theories fully explain how the ancient Micronesians managed to lay and align these massive structures so precisely. Nan Madol is also surrounded by many legends and myths. Local residents believe that the city possesses magical properties and that it was built using supernatural powers. Some myths claim that Nan Madol was home to spirits and was used for rituals related to ancestor worship. To this day, this ancient city inspires awe and respect among the residents of Pohnpei, and they avoid visiting Nanmadol after sunset, believing it to be a place inhabited by spirits. A student discovered an entire city. Mexican archaeologists accidentally discovered an ancient Mayan city hidden in the jungles of Campeche. A student researcher from Tulane University, Leupold Thomas, discovered a city called Valeriana while reviewing light detection and ranging laser survey data. This method allows mapping objects beneath layers of vegetation, and old Thomas managed to spot what had previously escaped the notice of other specialists. The city of Valeriana, covering about 16.6 square kilometers, impresses with its structure. Pyramids, sports fields, amphitheaters, and roads connecting different areas have been discovered here. Archaeologists believe that Valeriana was likely home to 30 to 50,000 people at its peak, from 750 to 850 AD. This city is second only to the famous Calakmul in terms of building density. The city layout indicates a complex structure. Two major centers with temple pyramids, connected by a network of roads and residential quarters, as well as residences and places for rituals. Traces of water reservoirs have even been found, which indicates a thoughtful use of natural resources. This discovery confirms that tropical forests were not places where civilizations died, but on the contrary, could support rich and complex cultures. Professor Marcello Canuto notes that the use of LIDAR technology over the past 10 years has accelerated the discovery of new Maya cities that previously remained unknown. Mythical giant. The Cardiff giant, a supposed petrified man 3 meters tall, was discovered in 1869 by workers digging a well in Cardiff, New York. The giant was actually a hoax made from a block of gypsum. He was brought to a farm in Cardiff where he was buried for a year before being discovered by the workers. The idea to create the giant belonged to George Hall, who wanted to prove the gullibility of the public and take advantage of people's religious belief in giant men mentioned in the Bible. After the giant was found, he became the subject of mass attention, and spectators paid for the opportunity to see him. The famous showman Barnum offered to buy the giant, but was refused. Then he created his own copy and claimed that his version was genuine and the original was a fake. In 1870, both giants were recognized as fakes, but the Cardiff giant went down in history as one of the greatest hoaxes of the 19th century. A place where you can find UFOs. American scientist, Northeastern University professor Brian Helmut claims that the search for extraterrestrial life on Earth should start with the ocean. In his opinion, oceans and seas hide many mysteries, and people have only a superficial understanding of their depths. Helmut, not being a specialist in UFOs but having knowledge in oceanology, believes that something related to extraterrestrial civilizations might be hiding underwater. I would like to add that recently, oceanographer Paula Bontempi joined National Aeronautics and Space Administration Special Commission for the Study of Unidentified Objects. Earlier, National Aeronautics and Space Administration announced the appointment of a new head of unidentified flying object research, Mark McKinnery, who previously represented the organization at the Pentagon. This underscores the seriousness of the approach to studying this phenomenon. The skull of a prehistoric bison. A resident of Volgograd found the skull of a prehistoric bison in the Volga, in the vicinity of the Krasnoktiabursky district. The find is of archaeological value. It was made near the boat station in the north of Volgograd. The span of the horns on the prehistoric bison's skull is about 1.5 meters. The diver who discovered the skull categorically refused to hand the find over to the museum. It is noted that remains of large horned bison have been found more than once in the Volgograd region. They are also featured in the exhibits of local museums. Hidden cameras in Scotland. In the shadow of modern Edinburgh, Scotland, there are mysterious underground chambers known as the Edinburgh Vaults. Built in the 18th century, these underground spaces were originally used as storage rooms and workshops for the city's growing businesses. However, over time, the conditions in the vaults deteriorated and they turned into a center of illegal activity, including smuggling, brewing, and providing shelter for the city's poor. Today, tours of the Edinburgh Vaults give visitors a chance to delve into the darker history of the city and explore the gloomy candlelit chambers and passageways that have survived to this day. As is known, the Edinburgh Vaults are a testament to the dark side of the city's history. They tell the story of ordinary people's lives and the hardships they faced in those times. Remains of a new species of dinosaur. An international group of scientists studied the remains of two dinosaurs discovered in 1994 in East Greenland and determined that this is a previously unknown species to science. Isi Sanek lived 214 million years ago during the late Triassic period. It was at this time that the supercontinent Pangaea broke apart and the Atlantic Ocean began to form. It was a medium-sized herbivorous dinosaur with a long neck. The species belongs to the group of sauropodomorph precursors, the largest land animals that ever existed. The team used microcomputed tomography to create digital 3D models of the internal structures and bones still covered by sediment. The anatomy of the two skulls is unique in many ways, such as the shape and proportions of the bones. These specimens definitely belong to a new species of dinosaur found in Greenland, distinct from all other sauropodomorphs discovered so far. Most likely, members of this species most closely resembled the dinosaurs found in Brazil, Macrocolum, and Uneisaurus. Excavations of an ancient civilization. Located near the northern coastal city of Trujillo in Peru, the ancient city of Chanchan offers a unique opportunity to glimpse into the fascinating world of the Chimu civilization. As one of the largest pre-Hispanic cities in South America, Chanchan is renowned for its complex system of underground canals, tunnels, and reservoirs, which provided efficient management of water and other resources during the city's heyday. The city's secret underground infrastructure also served as a refuge during harsh weather conditions and possible invasions by aggressors. Today, visitors can explore the archaeological complex of Chanchan to uncover its unique history, which includes both above-ground and underground remnants of the complex social structure of the Chimu civilization. As is known, Chanchan is not only an archaeological site, but also a testament to the highly developed Chimu civilization. These structures demonstrate the advanced technologies and skills of ancient people in the fields of architecture and resource management. Would you like to visit these ancient underground cities? Or maybe some of you have already been to something like this. Be sure to write about it in the comments under the video. We would all be interested to read it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.